Good morning, children. This is your first class in the new academic year 2020-21. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to this new academic session. In biology, for 11th standard, you have 5 units in NCERT book. Totally 22 chapters are there. All the chapters are very interesting. You need not worry about all these things. Very interesting. Today we are going to study about the first chapter in first unit. What is biology? You will give answer. I know. Biology is the study of plants and animals. It is not only the study of plants and animals, it is a story of life on this earth. Story of life on this earth. We will study about the story of plants. How are they are constructed, and the story of animals and the functions of different parts of animals, functions of different parts of plants, and then how are the leaves arranged, and what are the different parts of a flower, and then there are a variety of living organisms on this earth. How are they grouped into different classes, and how are they grouped? All these things we will study under this biology. In the first chapter, we are going to study about the living world. It comes under the unit diversity of life. The living world. When you see a variety of living organisms on this earth, really we will be amazed to see each and every living organism. Living organisms can be in very cold climates. Some may live in very hot climatic condition. Some may live in saline water. Some are in fresh water. Some are present deep under the soil. And also when we see a galloping horse, really we astonish. And also when we see the flowers, the buds bloom into flowers, really we amaze. While seeing all these things, one question comes to our mind. What is that? What is life? Another question also, what is life for? What is the purpose of life? This second question is, what is the purpose of life? This question will be dealt by psychologists. What is life? We scientists, we will give answer and we will study about what is life. In biology for 11th standard, you have 5 units, I told you already. Unit 1, diversity in the living world. And it has 4 chapters. Second unit is structural organization in plants and animals. It has 3 chapters. Unit 3 is about cells. Structure and functions of cells. It has 3 chapters. And then 4th unit is about plant physiology. It has 5 chapters. And then unit 5 is about human physiology and it has 7 chapters. Today we are going to study about the chapter 1, the living world, in the unit 1, diversity in the living world. When we think about living organisms, first thing that comes to our mind is what are the different characteristic features of living organisms. And we used to compare living organisms with non-living things. And what are the different characteristic features of living organisms? All these already you studied in your lower classes. This growth, reproduction. They have the ability to sense the environment. And there is metabolism inside their body. And there is cellular organization. And they show consciousness. All these are the characteristic features of living organisms. What is a living organism? Living organisms are self-replicating, evolving, and self-regulating interactive systems capable of responding to external stimuli. Living organisms are self-replicating. That means they increase in number, they reproduce, evolving. They change, and new organisms are evolved from the previously existing ones. And self-regulating, there is regulation of all the functions inside the body. And then interactive system, there is interaction between the individuals of the population and between populations of a community, and capable of responding to external stimuli. They can respond to external stimuli. We will study about all the characteristic features one by one. Among these characters, some of the characters are definite properties. Definite, and some are not definite. Some are the defining properties and some are non-defining properties. What are defining and what are non-defining, we will study. First, we will study about growth. What is growth? Growth is increase in mass and also increase in number. Both denotes growth. Growth in plants is different from the growth in animals. The pattern of growth in plants and animals differ. Plants, they grow throughout their life, but animals only up to a certain age. After that, there will be no growth for animals. If we consider increase in body mass as growth, if we consider increase in body mass is growth, then non-living things like mountains, boulders, and sand mounds do grow. They also grow. See, a small mountain, when more and more substances are added on the surface, outer surface, then the size will be increased by accumulation of materials on the surface. In living organisms, new cells are added inside, not outside, but new cells are added into the body. That is the difference. Here, non-living things also increase in size, living things also increase in size. So, we cannot consider growth as a defining property. Growth cannot be a defining property. Okay, next characteristic feature of living organisms is reproduction. What is reproduction? Production of progeny possessing features more or less similar to those of parents. Parents, they produce offspring. This offspring resemble the parents more or less. And reproduction is of two types: asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Fungi, they reproduce by producing more number of spores. Yeast and hydra, they reproduce by budding. Planaria reproduce by regeneration. What is regeneration? That is developing the lost part. If a part of the body is lost, they can regenerate the lost part. Fungi, filamentous algae, protonema of mosses, they reproduce by fragmentation. The body, matured body, will be broken down into small fragments. Each and every fragment will develop into a new individual. Amoeba, it reproduces by binary fission. So under reproduction, these all different organisms, they reproduce in different modes or different methods. So living organisms, they reproduce. Till now we studied. But there are some more living organisms, they cannot reproduce. Example, mules. What is a mule? It is a hybrid between a donkey and a horse. And then this mule, it cannot reproduce. It cannot give birth to young ones. And then sterile worker bees. In the colony of bees, only the female, that is the queen, it can reproduce, it can give birth to, it can produce progeny. But the worker bees, they are sterile. They cannot produce their progeny. And also in human beings, there are so many infertile couples are there. They cannot give birth to young ones. So mules, sterile worker bees, and infertile human couples, all these, they cannot reproduce. Just like non-living things. Non-living things cannot reproduce. These sterile organisms cannot reproduce. So reproduction also cannot be a defining property. It's not a defining property. So next characteristic feature, that is metabolism. What is metabolism? Inside our body, so many chemical reactions take place. Continuously, complex organisms are broken down and very large molecules are formed continuously inside our body. The sum total of all the chemical reactions occurring in our body is metabolism. There is no metabolism in non-living organisms. No non-living object exhibits metabolism. Only this metabolism chemical reactions happen inside the body of living organisms. So metabolism is a defining property. Growth and reproductions are not defining properties, but metabolism is a defining property. And another characteristic feature of living organisms is consciousness. What is consciousness? Consciousness is the ability to sense the environment and responding to the changed environment. They respond to stimuli. They respond to different stimuli like light, water, temperature, and pollutants. Plants and animals both respond to stimuli. And also photoperiodism. Photoperiod, that is exposure of living organisms to sunlight. That photoperiod affects their reproduction. So all these stimuli, they bring about some responses from the living organisms. But no non-living object can respond to stimuli. No non-living objects cannot respond to stimuli. And another characters, there are other characters also now. So consciousness is a defining property. Metabolism is a defining property, and also next consciousness is a defining property. Human beings, they show self-consciousness. But when a human being is in coma stage, there will be no self-consciousness. His heart and lungs, they won't function. And also living organisms, they show interaction among organelles, cells and tissues. The whole life is by the interaction between different molecules present in the cells. And the interaction between the cells bring about life. And the interactions between tissues also brings about life. So interaction among, that is organization also is a defining property of living organism. So what are the non-defining properties and what are defining properties? Growth and reproduction are non-defining properties. Metabolism, organization and response to stimuli are defining property of living organisms. And then the next topic is diversity in the living world. The world contains a large variety of living organisms. Totally 1.7 to 1.8 million species are known and are described. And more areas are explored and more organisms are discovered and they are described and they are added to the existing numbers. What is biodiversity? This variety of living organisms, number and types of organisms, this variety of living organisms present on earth is biodiversity. And then when we explore more areas, more organisms are discovered. Since 1.7 to 1.8 million species of species are present on this earth. So really it's very difficult for us to know about all these organisms. So each and every organism should be given a name. But local people, the living organisms are called by the local people by giving local names. For example, if you see dogs, if you take the example of dogs, the dogs are named as dog in English. In Tamil we call these dogs as Nai. In Hindi, the same organism is known as Kutta. In Malayalam, the same organism, dog, is known as Patti. So the same organism is known by different names in different areas, even within the country. So there is a need to give a single name to one individual. Otherwise, it will create confusion. To avoid confusion, scientists, they gave one name to one organism. These local names varies from place to place, so there will be confusion. There is a need to standardize the naming of living organisms. And one organism should be known by the same name all over the world. One organism should be known by the same name throughout the world. So, already we studied about this dog. So, only one name is given to the dog by scientists. That name is, scientific name is Canis lupus. Canis lupus is the scientific name for dog. So, if they tell Canis lupus, it denotes dog. Even when you go to foreign countries, there, if you say Canis lupus, they know. And in India also, they know. In Hindi, in Tamil, and also in Hindi, and also in Malayalam, all they know about the scientific name. The scientific name is same all over the world. If a if an organism is given a name, first we have to identify the organism. So identification is very, very important. The organism should be described correctly and we should know to what organism the name is attached to. And this is called identifying an organism, and describing it correctly is called identification. What is nomenclature? A particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. This process is known as nomenclature. And then identification. For naming an organism, it should be described correctly and we should know to which organism the name is attached to. And this is called identification. And for assigning a scientific name, scientists, they follow some principles. They follow some conventions. For giving names, scientific names to plants, principles and criteria that are provided in ICBN is followed. Scientists, they follow the criteria and principles that is given in ICBN to give scientific name for plants. What is ICBN? International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. And for assigning scientific name for animals, scientists, they follow ICZN. What is ICZN? International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. And they follow so many principles in assigning a scientific name to a plant or an animal. What are the conventions? What are the rules they followed in naming an organism? Each name has two components. For example, see, you take Mangifera indica. Mangifera indica Linn. This Mangifera indica is the scientific name for mango. Here it has the scientific name of mango has two names, Mangifera and indica. The first one is called generic name and the second one is called specific name. This is the first rule. First name will be generic name and the second name will be specific epithet. We call this as specific epithet. And all